If you ever find this, I didn't go quietly. I told you everything. Those were the last words received, not spoken but typed, timestamp 2:13 a.m. Her final messages read like a countdown to something inevitable. She knew. Every second, every keystroke was her plea, her proof, and her legacy. 1:47 a.m. The first message buzzed quietly onto Nadia's phone. I think someone's here. At first, she thought Alina was being dramatic again, maybe another raccoon or a weird neighbor. But something about the phrasing was off. Alina wasn't one to imagine things. She was always grounded, rational to a fault. Nadia stared at the message a little too long, the 3 dots showing Alina was still typing. The second message followed in less than 30 seconds. No joke. I heard footsteps upstairs. I'm in the kitchen now. Lights off. Then came a string of texts, each more unsettling than the last. Front doors locked. Back door too. Windows closed. I can't see anyone, but I know I'm not alone. Alina was house-sitting that week for one of her professors, staying in a large, older house a few blocks from the medical campus. The house sat at the edge of a wooded trail, and the backside opened into dense trees that pressed up against the property like a curtain. She had joked earlier that night over dinner that the place gave her the creeps. It's too quiet, she said, slicing into her lasagna. Like it's waiting for something. Nadia had laughed it off. Now, nearly 2 hours later, she was staring at her phone in bed, wide awake. The next text, second floor creaked. I swear something just moved past the stairs. Then, I don't think it's an intruder. Not normal. Those words chilled her. Not an intruder? What did she mean? Nadia quickly typed back, call 911. Stop texting. Just hide or call me. I'll come get you. But there was no reply. Alina didn't call 911. Instead, she kept texting. It was as if she was creating a log, a minute-by-minute breakdown of what was happening. Her thoughts, her fear, her deductions. It was standing behind the guest room door. I saw a shadow. No face. Just, it knew I saw it. And now it's quiet again. Nadia tried to call her, but it went straight to voicemail. She texted, I'm calling the police. But then came another message. Don't. It won't matter. This feels planned. Planned. That word stood out like a scream in the dark. Why wouldn't she want help? The messages came more erratic now, full of typos and panic. Lights flickered. Power's out now. It's not moving, but I can feel it watching. And then, I'm in the laundry room. Small window. Door locked. Battery low. The last part hit hard. Her phone was dying. Yet she still chose to text, not call. She wasn't just scared. She was deliberate. Nadia stared at the screen as another message rolled in. This isn't random. It wants me to know something. It knows I figured it out. Figured what out? Nadia typed frantically, but there was no response. The minutes passed like ice dripping down her spine. Then finally, 1:58 a.m., I found that file. Maybe that's why. I saw too much. A moment later, I sent the file to an email. Check my drafts. It's about patient #316A. Nadia got out of bed, now pacing, torn between calling for help or driving straight to the house. She didn't know what patient 316A was. Maybe it was some hospital mistake or corruption. Alina had been suspicious of something lately but never said what. She just looked tired, more secretive. Overworked. Now, it all felt connected. The next message came like a gut punch. If I don't make it out, tell my brother I'm sorry. Tell him I tried. That was at 2:05 a.m. The typing bubble returned at 2:08. But the message never came. Just 3 dots that vanished. Nadia grabbed her coat and car keys. As she bolted out the door, she received one final message, timestamp 2:13 a.m. If you ever find this, I didn't go quietly. I told you everything. It would be the last anyone ever heard from Alina Reyes. When the police arrived 23 minutes later, the house was empty. Every door locked. No sign of a break-in. The lights were off, power still functioning, no fuse blown. Alina's phone was found in the laundry room, screen cracked and warm, like it had been dropped just minutes ago. The messages were real. The terror was real. But Alina was gone. And the only proof she left behind was her own narrative, sent 1 minute at a time, as if she was trying to leave breadcrumbs not just for Nadia, but for the world. The investigation officially began at 3:02 a.m., when officers arrived at the house after Nadia's frantic 911 call. The property was still. Too still. There were no broken windows, no splintered doors. Every entrance was locked from the inside. The porch light glowed dimly over a perfectly calm scene. But inside it told another story. The first thing detectives noticed was the phone, half buried beneath a pile of laundry on the floor. The screen was spiderwebbed with cracks, but somehow still glowing, open on the messages Alina had sent. There were dozens of them, scattered across multiple threads. Some had been delivered. Some were still marked as unsent, caught in a limbo of failed signal or sudden interference. They read like a live diary of fear. But what shook investigators was the fact that none of the doors had been forced open. No windows broken. Not a single footprint out of place. It was as though she had evaporated from the room. Forensics swept the house from top to bottom. They found signs that Alina had been preparing for bed earlier, a cup of tea on the counter, her laptop still open on the coffee table, logged into her university email. A search through the laptop revealed a draft email, unsent, addressed to an unnamed recipient. Attached was a file titled patient316A_report_final.pdf. It was encrypted, password protected. And the email body was blank. The timestamp on the draft was 1:44 a.m., just 3 minutes before her first text. She had found something serious enough to try and send it out, but clearly something or someone interrupted her. They pulled security footage from a few neighboring houses. The problem? Most of the street had motion-activated cameras, and nothing had triggered them. But one neighbor across the street and facing Alina's house had a continuous recording system. The footage showed Alina's bedroom light flickering on and off between 1:40 and 2:10 a.m. Nothing strange there. But then at exactly 2:14, 1 minute after her last message, the back door creaked open just an inch. There was no one visible. No movement on the porch. Just the door slowly opening then shutting again. The timestamp matched too perfectly. They replayed the footage, frame by frame, but saw no figure approaching or leaving the house. No vehicle. Not even an animal. Inside the house it was the same, no clear signs of a struggle. No blood. No fingerprints beyond Alina's on most surfaces. Only one partial smudge was found on the inside doorknob of the laundry room. It didn't match anyone in the database. That room itself was small, windowless, and cold. But the sense of something lingering, it was overwhelming. The air was heavy, and investigators who entered the space noted an odd static buzzing in the air, though no electrical faults were present. Then there were the texts. They had been sent to 3 people: Nadia, her ex-boyfriend Micah, and an unknown number. That third number led to a burner phone, registered nowhere, inactive since 2:15 a.m. But upon tracing the cell tower data, they found something chilling. The number's last ping came from inside the house. Not nearby. Not outside. Inside. It was as though whoever Alina had been texting was already there. The idea sent a ripple through the team. Was the killer someone she knew? Was she lured there under false pretenses? Or did she stumble onto something she was never supposed to find? Nadia, shaken but determined, provided more context. She mentioned a series of cryptic conversations she'd had with Alina weeks before. Alina had been helping with a research project at the local teaching hospital. She'd been reviewing anonymized patient records for a clinical trial, but something didn't add up. She told Nadia there were missing records, names that didn't match, and a patient, just one, whose file kept reappearing after deletion. Patient 316A. And then, out of nowhere, she stopped talking about it. Now she was gone. The police tried tracing every thread of the night: delivery drivers, Uber logs, neighbors walking dogs, anything. But the timeline was airtight. No one entered or left the house, not on camera. Not by force. No one heard screams. The digital evidence showed Alina was alive until at least 2:13 a.m., actively typing, heart racing. But then she disappeared without a trace. It wasn't just the absence of evidence that haunted the investigators. It was the detail in her texts. She described events no one else could see. A presence watching her. Movement that evaded every angle of surveillance. She said it felt planned. That it knew she figured it out. That wasn't the language of someone imagining things. It was someone piecing together the truth too late. They reviewed her final, unsent text, stuck in her outbox due to a loss of signal or something more sinister. It read, "He's not supposed to be here. They said he died 3 weeks ago. But I saw him. I know I did." The case officially remains unsolved. But for everyone who's read those texts, who stood in that cold laundry room, or stared at the open email with the encrypted file, one truth remains. Whatever happened that night, it was never random. The number Alina had texted last, the one not tied to Nadia or Micah, led investigators in a disturbing direction. It didn't belong to a friend, a family member, or anyone listed in her contacts. When tech forensics traced its activity, the trail stopped cold. It was a prepaid burner phone that had been activated only 48 hours before the incident, used sparingly, and then powered down permanently just after 2:15 a.m., precisely the moment Alina's last message failed to send. The signal's last ping came from inside the house. It wasn't coincidence. It was strategy. Alina had discovered something. Something tied to the hospital where she'd been working as a research assistant. As detectives dove deeper, they uncovered a string of inconsistencies in the medical records she'd accessed in the days leading up to her disappearance. One name appeared multiple times under different IDs. One patient, numbered 316A, stood out. This wasn't a normal case. No real identity. No release records. No next of kin. What Alina had found wasn't just an error in paperwork. It was a patient who wasn't supposed to exist. 3 weeks before she vanished, Alina had confided in Micah, briefly and cautiously. She said she was scared. That something was off. She mentioned seeing someone in the hospital who didn't belong on any schedule, wearing a lab coat with no ID badge. When she reported it to her supervisor, she was told it was just a rotating resident and not to worry. But Alina kept digging. Her search history showed late-night research into whistleblower laws, hospital protocols, and a series of articles about unethical drug trials. One document, recovered from her laptop's recycle bin, was a hand-typed note. It simply read, 316A, discharged 2/3. Declared deceased. But saw him on February 12th. 4th floor. Same jacket. Same eyes. Still alive. She had stumbled onto something she wasn't meant to see. Further examination of the hospital's internal server, accessed through her login in the hours before the incident, revealed a locked folder. Within it, a video file named test_patient 316A_visual.mov. When decrypted, investigators saw something deeply unsettling. A heavily sedated man restrained in a hospital bed, eyes wide, unmoving, monitored by staff in hazmat suits. There was no sound. Just the timestamp in the corner, February 10th. 1 week after his supposed death. Alina had tried to warn someone. That final text, the one she typed but never sent, said it clearly. They said he died 3 weeks ago. But I saw him. I know I did. What terrified the investigators wasn't just what she saw. It was the realization that she tried to tell him, whoever he was. The burner number. The unknown contact. When records were matched with staff access logs, something dark began to take shape. A former doctor, Alan Breck, had once been involved in a hush-hush trial related to patient 316A. Breck was removed from the hospital following a psychiatric evaluation and eventually disappeared from the system entirely. No resignation. No forwarding address. Officially he no longer existed. But he matched the description Alina gave Micah, the man with no badge who didn't belong. And the burner number? The final cell tower pings not only placed it inside the house, they matched the same radius as Breck's old property, a remote house that had sat abandoned for 5 years, until someone reactivated the water and electricity 2 days before Alina went missing. The more the police uncovered, the more it seemed like Alina's disappearance wasn't a random attack, it was a silencing. A calculated removal of someone who knew too much. Her minute-by-minute texts weren't just desperate. They were evidence. She knew she couldn't escape, so she documented everything. With chilling precision. And yet, one part didn't make sense. Why text him? Why send a message to the very person she believed was part of the conspiracy? A theory emerged. Maybe she wasn't warning him. Maybe she was testing him. To see if he'd respond. To prove he was still alive. Maybe she wanted to push him out of hiding. Or maybe, in those final minutes, she realized something even more terrifying, that he had been watching all along. The truth landed like a gut punch during a review of her final text's metadata. Her phone had been mirrored. A second device had remote access. Every message she typed, even the ones unsent, had been visible to someone else, in real time. He was reading along. She wasn't texting him. She was talking to him. And he was already in the house. The case has since gone cold. No arrest. No body. No definitive proof of who he was. The encrypted file remains sealed, no password ever recovered. But the details that surfaced were enough to make headlines for weeks, drawing attention from online sleuths, conspiracy forums, and investigative journalists. Alina's story became a warning, a symbol, of a young woman who understood in her final hour that truth is not always protected. That sometimes the best you can do is write it down, no matter the cost. Because even in the dark, even when her voice was fading, she chose to send the world a message. I told you everything.